We're your hosts,
Aaron Bacus
and Jason Kindler.
We like to sit down with our guests to hear their journey, their challenges, and how they impact the local community.
So grab a seat, tune in, and let's get inspired by Jacksonville's everyday workforce.
Welcome to Hometown Jax. Marc Edwards, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. I've been working on you for a long time, man. You're trying to get through your people, your agents, and everything was really difficult.
Well, you're exaggerating a little bit there.
Yes.
There are no agents anymore now that I'm a business owner.
Yes.
But yes, I travel a lot.
Yes.
I'm gone, throughout the week. But fortunately, I'm able to, kind of as my own boss, can sometimes, make some adjustments.
Yes.
And plus, my son played in his spring football game last night, and I wasn't going to miss that. So that left me in town for today.
Well, I'm glad to have you. I know I've been working on you for a while, and I appreciate you being patient. I know you're busy. So really excited to have you on the podcast today. I want to go through, kind of where you came from, your football career, kind of what you're doing now, talk about your family a little bit. Man, you've really come a long way. I thought I knew you over a couple of cocktails in the basketball season many years ago, but I didn't know everything. Pretty interesting.
I grew up in a small town, Norwood, which is a city within the city of Cincinnati.
Right.
It's about a 3 square foot, or 3 square mile.
Right.
3 square foot. It's not that little.
Right.
But 3 square mile city, and grew up there. Pretty humble beginnings. Lived with my aunt and my grandmother. My mom and stepdad lived there with us, and everybody kind of pitched in to make ends meet. I never went hungry, but never had the luxuries growing up. But didn't know any better.
Well, and we go right into Norwood because I read, and we'll talk a little bit about the book that was made about you or written about you, that you're very proud. I mean, you always say Norwood. A lot of people say I'm from Cincinnati, which was close, but you're like Norwood, true and true, right?
Absolutely. I think the kind of blue collar upbringing has a lot to do with my success, not only during my time I was playing football, but kind of what I've transitioned into now. So, very happy and proud to be from my hometown. Love living here in Florida, loved growing up in Norwood, loved going back, but now Florida's home.
Well, I saw they retired your jersey at the high school there.
You
must have done a few special things there, right?
I had a pretty solid high school career there.
Yes.
Started all 4 years. First year we weren't so good, went 0-10, and then we actually transitioned. Got a little bit better and went to the playoffs for the first time in school history and won a playoff game my junior year. So we weren't, Norwood wasn't a powerhouse and really hasn't been a powerhouse since.
Right.
But we were pretty good for a few years. And, we ended up being Mr. Football my senior year in Ohio. And back in 1992 season.
What does Mr. Football mean? I'm assuming
Mr. Football is like the Heisman Trophy of college, of Ohio.
Okay,
right,
great honor for sure.
Yeah. So it was exciting because I was the first Cincinnati area, or southeast or southwest Ohio athlete to get that, and quite frankly, there hadn't been another one until about 5 years ago.
Interesting.
So from 92 to 2020, there was not another Cincinnati area player who got that award.
So what you're saying is Norwood isn't on the Ohio map, really?
No. They've been to the playoffs once or twice since when the playoffs expanded in Ohio. But I think there has been, there was one Division I player 10 years before me from Norwood High School.
Okay.
So in the early 80s. And there's been one Division I player since.
Wow.
I went to an FCS school.
Okay.
There have not been any real, highly
Norwood
recruited players from Norwood.
Is like Mayberry's not it, but just like that hardworking, mid country town. I read something where the GM plant closed when you were there, so that was a major employer, a major setback or event for Norwood.
It was huge during that time. That was, I think, right around my 7th or 8th grade year.
Yeah.
And they were talking about eliminating sports in Norwood because that was the big tax base. Half the town worked at GM.
Yeah.
That was the major tax base there, and when that closed down, people panicked.
Right.
We were going to become part of Cincinnati, perhaps. Cincinnati was going to gobble us up or whatever. Norwood was going to lose its identity. And fortunately, new business kind of came in just about that time.
Okay.
And
just various business or a big
a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah. And, slowly but surely, Norwood's rebounded and still there, thriving today.
Yeah. I read that. That's awesome. Now, football, did that your interest start before high school? Were you playing in middle school? And
Norwood did not have a youth football program when I was growing up. So I had to go to a neighboring city, Reading, Ohio. So I played 5 years of Little League football. So my first year I played, I was 6 years old. I was the worst player on the team. Every time I got into a game, I came out crying for some reason.
Right.
I got my foot stepped on. I got the wind knocked out. I got poked in the eye. I remember all of this.
It's funny because I know your son, Sander, who is an amazing athlete, but I can remember the first junior pros practice he came to. He did a little crying too. And then I remember your wife, Darcy, get back in there and get after it. And now he's an amazing football player.
We'll get to a story about him, his first year of football as well. But so I get through that first year of football at 6 years old, and I decide not to play as a 7-year-old. I played soccer, which back then soccer wasn't very mainstream.
Right.
Played at a local Y team.
Right.
And then went back to football when I was 8. And first game, I had like a 98, 99-yard touchdown run, and then I found a new love. Yeah. I played 5 years of youth football at with a neighboring city, Reading.
Yeah.
Had a great time there, and then transitioned. And I was number 43 then.
Okay.
So I transitioned to middle school, and obviously Norwood had a middle school team. And they did not have the number 43, which I had worn all through my youth football. So got the next number. They had 44 available. So that's when I became 44.
There you go.
And two good years in middle school, and then high school we talked about a little bit already. And
Well, what was interesting reading about you, were you a linebacker or were you a fullback?
Both. Well, I was more of a running back.
Did you play both?
I played both. We played both ways, all the way through youth football, all the way through high school.
Okay.
I played a little bit of safety in youth football, but I was always pretty much a linebacker and a running back.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily a fullback, but mainly a running back. So.
Right. So you had an amazing high school. You're highly recruited. I remember you telling me the story about how recruiting was back then. I remember this vividly about, weren't they only allowed to call between 7 and 9, or there were certain times?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I remember that being so interesting.
So these was pre-cellphone days, obviously. It was just when call waiting was introduced, right? So you wouldn't
our parents didn't like that.
You wouldn't get the busy signal when you were on the phone. You would get the call waiting.
I remember.
So from I think it was like 6 to 9 p.m. during Monday through Thursday, schools were allowed to call you during the season.
Right.
So literally, I would get home from football practice, I would eat, and I would literally spend the next 3 hours talking to coaches just about every day.
Right.
And it was a little bit stressful because I didn't know, because we didn't have experience with my coach, didn't really have experience with anybody being recruited before. So even though I was putting up these huge numbers my sophomore and junior year, we didn't know if I was going to be a Ohio State, Notre Dame type recruit or a Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green type of recruit. So I was talking to everybody,
right?
Because I didn't know at that time. I would get back and I'd be on the phone, so-and-so's calling or whatever.
That everybody's calling, kind of like, I'm assuming, like, okay, I can go anywhere I want, kind of thing.
Once again, I was kind of leaning that way, but wasn't taking anything for granted at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'd be on the phone with one team and somebody would click in and I didn't want to miss anything, so I would click over and then I'm trying to, talk to both coaches at once. But I got calls from over 100 schools, wrote them all down. Eventually, as the recruiting progressed, visited some of the bigger schools. They started reaching out and saying, hey, we want you to come for an official visit. And then I knew I was going to be, I could pretty much go not anywhere I wanted, but a big time school.
Right.
And, the ones that were pursuing me the hardest, obviously Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, schools like that. Oddly enough, like Michigan had no interest whatsoever. Never called anything. I went up there for an unofficial visit after my junior year, and they never called anything. So after I already had my visits set for Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, they're rivals basically. The Michigan coach, just happened to call my coach one day, like, hey, whatever happened with that Edwards kid? He's like, oh, well, he's got visits here. He's like, oh, well, would he come to Michigan? I'm like, no, that boat's already sailed.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
So obviously you went to Notre Dame. What were the other top ones that was there any really close, or like, man, I went to Notre Dame.
No,
I knew that was it.
What's interesting is how my perspective changed from my freshman year to my senior year.
Okay.
So
you were being highly recruited the whole time.
I started getting letters as a freshman.
Okay.
But it wasn't like it is now with social media. I mean, these kids are getting offers in 8th and 9th grade now.
Right.
They really didn't start offering until you're, late in your junior year, summer into your senior year. But, they were sending letters, and, we knew there was some interest. But it's, like I said, the recruiting is just so different now.
Right.
So, but there were a bunch of schools that I was really interested in. Started kind of narrowing it down, and what I found was that my freshman year, because USC was the first school that sent me a letter, and this is like Southern California.
Right.
I'm like, wow, I want to go to Southern Cal. Like they were the first ones to show any interest at all.
Right.
And then my sophomore year, I was really a big Michigan State fan. Like back then, they were pretty good. They had Percy Snow, George Perlis was the coach.
Yeah.
Blake Ezelor was a great running back there.
Right.
And then my junior year, I would have went to Penn State. They were, they had won some national titles in the mid '80s when I was kind of watching and stuff like that. And then my junior year, I get there, and like Notre Dame's a no-brainer for me. But with the offense that Lou Holtz was running, because I knew I played tailback and single back in high school, but I knew I wasn't going to be a tailback in college unless I went to like a smaller school.
Right.
So I knew
Difference
fullback
between
was
tailback and fullback. Fullback is you're mainly blocking for the tailback.
Well, yes, but the fullback still, he's getting out in pass patterns, catching some balls out in the flats, some screens, getting in, running the ball a little bit. And that's why Holtz's offense was so good for me, because I was a very athletic fullback. I was a big, strong tailback, running back in high school. And that translated to being an athletic kind of West Coast type fullback in college under Holtz's offense. So with the fact that Notre Dame was, if I went to Notre Dame, I knew I was going to graduate. I knew I was going to be put into a great alumni association. I knew that I was going to, be competing for a national title. I was going to be on national TV every week, and the offense really fit my skill set. Right. So that when I say it's a no-brainer at that point, that was the rationale behind my decision. Now, funny enough, when I was in 8th and 9th grade, I hated Notre Dame. That was right when they were on in 88 and 89. They were on that 23-game win streak, and they were kind of like the Yankees to me. I was just so tired of seeing them win that when they lost that game to Miami in 1989 to end that 23-game win streak, like I was cheering for Miami. And I tell the story at Notre Dame all the time. And funny enough, fast forward a couple years later, Notre Dame's recruiting me, and I put all this together that I just talked about, and it's just like this is a no-brainer for me. And I'm looking back on some of my old folders and things like that I had from my sophomore year of high school, where I had written Notre Dame sucks on one of them.
Gosh, that's
so yeah. But once I started putting all those factors together, like I said, it was a no-brainer for me.
Man, that's awesome. Obviously Lou Holtz was the coach. Was that a major factor too?
Yes, because at the time he was the Nick Saban, he was the Kirby Smart, of the world, and I knew that they were a top tier program. and I was going to have a chance to win a national title. I was going to be in a great offense for an athletic running fullback, because you're following the line of Rodney Culver and Jerome Bettis and, Ray Zellers was there. I mean, all these guys were, guys that were, as fullbacks, were getting, 8 to 10 carries and catching 2 or 3 balls a game. So you were still involved in the offense. You just weren't a blocking mule. Like if I would have went to Ohio State, I would have been a blocking mule for Eddie George. They had a kid named Nicky Sualua who, he was built like an offensive guard. He was their fullback. Great player, but just different type of player as a fullback than I was. It was just all those factors, and just
back then it was probably obviously a little bit more work to get the information to make your decision. I mean, now you just go on, get everything there, but like a little bit of leap of faith too. I mean, you don't know everything.
Yeah, you did. I didn't have film widely available to watch. I watched some of the games. You've heard of Notre Dame. What's funny is I didn't know. Once again, as I was an 8th and 9th grader, I wasn't a Notre Dame fan, but I didn't even know where South Bend was, where Notre Dame was, until maybe my junior year. Yeah, like it's only 4 hours away from Cincinnati. Did Lou Holtz come to one of your
high school games?
He didn't come to the games. They watched plenty of film, but he did come visit my high school.
Okay.
I think it was right after my official visit, or right after, or right before.
I bet that was a pretty big deal.
But yeah, the running back coach, the recruiting coordinator, and Holtz came to Norwood, Ohio, and it was a big deal because Norwood isn't a big place. So there were some kids that met him in the hallway, and Holtz signed autographs and took a couple old school pictures. They had to get developed.
Well, I love how you were saying you're comparing him to Saban and Kurt, like that's what he was in that time period.
From 88 to 93, that time frame, Notre Dame shouldn't have lost a game. They were so good, so talented. They had 3 and 4 first-round picks every year, several second-round picks. Just so much talent during that time frame.
Was that was it part of your drive too? Like, I know I'm going to go and I'm going to be challenged?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
But you're not necessarily thinking I'm going to be challenged. You're thinking that, hey, I'm going to go there and compete and I'm going to challenge everybody else.
Right.
So, and that's one thing. I had a high school coach, Gary Sexton, which he was the guy that I was talking about earlier, that he was the Division I recruit right before me.
Oh, interesting.
In 82 out of Norwood. Right. But he was our DB coach, and he was helping me out a little bit as well as my head coach, Jim Barry, because he had some experience. He played at the University of Kentucky. So, he was talking to me. He's like, Mark, you can go to a place like Notre Dame, get lost in the shuffle and never play it down and disappear.
Right.
Or you can go to, a mid-major. You can go to Miami of Ohio and, you can start all 4 years and you can be a tailback there.
Right.
So, we talked through those scenarios. And once again, that's why I was talking to everybody, at all different levels, because I really didn't know what level I was going to be at. But, I decided, hey, I want to go play big time. And
you obviously had a lot of confidence.
Yeah. And, it worked out pretty nice. But I do remember, as a freshman, you go in for freshman camp, right? You get there 3 or 4 days before the upperclassmen. And they had recruited another fullback and 2 tailbacks. So there were 4 of us in the running back room. A guy named Ron Harden out of, I think he's out of Atlanta or something like that. And, both highly recruited. And, that's where the challenge started. I had to prove I was the best, freshman fullback before anything.
Right.
And I think that happened because he actually transferred out after training camp.
Yes.
But 2 days, a couple days after we started freshman camp, then the upperclassmen came in. So
I'm sure they're welcoming to the freshmen too, right?
Yeah. Well, we had 26 in our class or something like that. So, but during freshman camp, I started feeling pretty good about things. We weren't in pads yet or anything, but we were running pass routes against the linebackers that were all highly recruited guys as well. And I'm holding my own and looking pretty good and feeling pretty good about myself. And then the upperclassmen come in, right? And I mean, it's like, hey, you're at the back of the bus now, son. And it was really eye-opening. Like, wow, these are grown men.
The level of talent just
jumped like so much. I mean, you guys have been in the off-season program with these guys for several years. They all back then, summer school for the student athletes where it was voluntarily mandatory. So, you had to be there. Even though it wasn't, required.
Right.
So, these guys are all just coming off summer workouts, a couple weeks home and then training camp. But, I mean, grown men, Brian Young and Jim Flanagan. And, I mean, these guys, Aaron Taylor was on that team. I mean, these future first round picks. And, like, it was eye-opening. And, that was very tough transition because all of a sudden, after feeling pretty good about myself, I'm like, wow, I am way behind here.
Right. Did so your freshman year, did you get in? Did you play?
Yeah. So I eventually earned some playing time. End up being the starter.
The starter.
Well, no, not that. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I beat out a senior who was the backup. So Ray Zellers was the starter. So I ended up with the backup fullback position. And also I was the starter in the T. Holtz ran the T formation on the goal line. I was a starting fullback for the T formation in short yardage and goal line situations. But Holtz, we ran the ball so much that we rotated out a lot. Right. So freshman year, I got a significant amount of play time. I still hold because I was the fullback on the goal line, that was the guy who got the ball all the time. And I still have the freshman touchdown record at Notre Dame with 8.
Wow.
And I started one game against Navy, had like 98 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But played a significant amount of time my freshman year, lettered and all that good stuff.
Did the team do well that year?
That was the year we went 11-1. We beat Florida State, number 1 versus number 2, game of the century. And then we lose to BC the next week. So we were number 1 in the country. We were 10-0 or 10-0, 11, or undefeated, 10-0, number 1 in the country. And then we lose to BC. And then after all the bowl games, we go to the Cotton Bowl back when it was still one of the big games.
Right.
Played against a 10-1 Texas A&M team, R.C. Slocum, the Wrecking Crew. They were really good back then, the old Southwest Conference champ, and beat them in the Cotton Bowl. And after everything was said and done, we were number 2, and Florida State, who we had beaten just a month before, was number 1. So maybe we didn't deserve to be national champions, but they definitely didn't deserve to be that over us. So when I got down to Florida in 2001 or 2003, play for the Jags. Like all these Florida State people are coming around now, and I'm just like, it still burns.
Yes,
that
still burns right now. I can tell.
Oh yeah. I mean, they, like I said, maybe we didn't deserve to be number 1, but they didn't deserve it over us. What should have happened is we should have won the coaches poll, and they should have won the AP. Probably it should have been a split national title. That's how it was back then. There were no playoffs; it was all voted on. But yeah, there's still a lot of bitterness harbored towards that. And
I can tell.
I ended up having a daughter that went to Florida State.
You brought it up.
Graduated. So I actually wore Florida State colors a few times.
Oh God!
Yeah. And that burned my flesh.
I was wondering if when you wrote that tuition check, you put national champs that year on the
1993 national champs, not you.
Well, I mean, Mark, that had to be like unbelievable. You go out of high school, you're getting tons of playing time as a freshman, and you're competing for the national champ. Everything that you went there for is happening right off the bat.
I didn't think I was going to lose a game in my 4 years at Notre Dame, the way that season started.
Right.
But yeah, that was pretty epic, and
so
feeling pretty good about
sophomore
year was a big disappointment.
Right.
Yeah, we started the year off pretty highly ranked. We win our first game against Northwestern, and then we lose a last-second field goal to Michigan. And kind of up and down season, we end up 6-5-1. We still go to a major bowl game. Got our doors beat off by a great Colorado team. Cordell Stewart was a senior, and all that. They had a great team. Holy moly!
Right.
But I played more that year. Ray Zellers was still the starter, but he was hurt for 3 or 4 games. I started 4 games that year. Right. Still played a significant role. And then we go to my junior year. So coming off a very disappointing 1994, expectations are pretty high. And I'm the starter that year now.
Okay.
We had a big-time freshman recruit fullback coming in, Jamie Spencer out of Louisiana. Everybody was telling me he was the next Jerome Bettis, and he was going to be a starter as a freshman over me, and so that spring ball I really stepped it up and had a great spring, had a great camp. Summer camp going into that next year, and shot that threat down pretty quick. So end up having a really solid junior year. We 9-3, missed, went to the Orange Bowl, lost a couple close games early. We lost our first game to Northwestern. Gary Barnett years, and that's actually when Pat Fitzgerald, the former head coach, was the linebacker. They had a great running back, Darnell Autry, and nobody knew Northwestern was going to be good that year. They ended up going to the Rose Bowl. And losing to USC. But we lose that game, and holy moly, we lost to Northwestern. We're in trouble.
Right.
So we lose that game. We win a couple more, and then we go to Ohio State, which is an enormous game, nationally televised game. We lose to Ohio State. We're 5-2 or something like that, and this is a pretty disappointing year. And then USC is coming to town. USC is 6-0, 7-0, number 5 in the country. We had beaten USC 11 years in a row. We tie them in 94. And so this is the year USC is finally going to beat us. John Robinson's back, Keyshawn Johnson's senior year, and they come into South Bend, as favorites, and we beat the tar out of them. Yeah, and that was one of my pretty big games. I was NBC Player of the Game and things like that, and really one of the games that people remember me playing and having a really big contribution.
Was that the one that they carried you off?
Yeah. Yeah,
that was the one.
Yeah, that was the one.
Every time I do some that pops up you were the one since Rudy that gets carried off.
Well, the legend gets bigger and bigger as the years go on. But that was the game, and I didn't really know what was going on at the time. Didn't think about anything. We were just all out in the field celebrating. It was a rush the field type game for the fans.
Yeah,
and it was good to first of all, USC is our biggest rival. We have Navy as a rival, and we respect Navy. We hate USC,
right?
As Notre Dame fans,
right?
So, but we had a big game there, and then went on. We won the rest of our games, won out, had a tough game in the Orange Bowl where we had a 10-point lead with about 8 minutes to go, and Florida State scores 2 late touchdowns to beat us. So, really good 1995 junior year. Then going into senior year, we have just about everybody back. We are really highly ranked. That was going to be, the next year. We are really competing for a national title. Come out the gate a little bit slow versus Vanderbilt. Still find a way to win the game. We go to Purdue. We got Texas, which was a huge game down in Austin. Beat them. We're 3-0, 4-0, whatever it was at the time. And then we got Ohio State. Once again, undefeated, coming to South Bend, huge game.
Yeah,
they end up beating us, and that one hurt a little bit. And then kind of as the year goes on, we got upset against Air Force that year, and we lost to them in overtime. I think it was the first year. It was the first year for the overtime rule in 1996.
Okay.
So and then I get hurt late in my senior year, tore an MCL with about 3 games to go, so missed the last few games my senior year. But we end up losing to USC in the final game of the season when I was hurt, and we ended up 8-3 that year, and we declined a bowl game that year. Declined, yeah, because Notre Dame at that point had been to 11 or 12 straight major January 1 bowl games, and it just wasn't worth it to the players that were going on to the combine and getting ready for the NFL. Holtz was like, "Hey, you know what? We're good. We're good."
That's funny. Well, what an amazing career. Do you still stay in touch with Lou Holtz? I mean,
yeah.
You really do?
Yeah.
Wow.
And not only that, but I have a crew of about 8 guys that are on a daily text thread that we're all 50, 51 now, and when on that text thread we act like we're 20. So like one of those, good thing nobody's reading this except us.
Right. Exactly.
But no, Lou Holtz still has events. I go back for his events. He lives down in Orlando now.
Okay.
He had an event at Notre Dame last year. Got him to meet my son and daughters and everything. Nice. Everything. he had an event at the national championship game this past year in Atlanta, and got to spend a little time with him as well. Good. But whenever he has an event, I try to still show up for him because he's getting up there. He's about 88. His mind's still pretty sharp. His body's failing him a little bit. He can still stand up a little bit, but needs a little help to get around. His wife died several years ago now, so he's still kicking it around, but I'm afraid he's not going to be around much longer. So trying to see him whenever I get the opportunity.
So obviously there's a ton of respect there that you loved playing for him.
Well, I wouldn't say I loved playing for him at the time, but it's one of those things that
so he was
as time goes on, I respect it more and more.
Yes,
and I look back more fondly of it. But as you're going through it. His philosophy was to put so much pressure on you during practice, especially as a young player, that come game time, it was a lot easier. Like I would go to practice as a freshman or sophomore when I was playing, and he would literally, I knew I was going to get my butt chewed out for something, right? I didn't know what it was going to be, but the one thing that he did was he focused on the little things, right? So if I was in my stance and I was supposed to take a lead step out of my stance, and instead, I took a crossover step. Regardless if I scored a touchdown or whatever, he was out there yelling and screaming and belittling me in front of everybody.
Right.
Like, it's the little things that matter, right? As little, if you do the little things right, then everything else is going to be easier. So you really dreaded going to practice because he always used to do this thing where, the offense would practice on one field, and Holtz was an offensive guy, so he was always with the offense. The defense would practice like 2 fields down. And he was like, if you made a mistake, whether how small it was or whatever, he's like, Mark, you're not good enough to play here with these starters. Like, you need to get on down to the practice squad. So I had to go down to the scout team. It was like the jog of shame because everybody knew that you messed up something. Now, none of the defensive players ever had to do the jog of shame to come to the offensive side, because the defensive coordinator wouldn't do that. But Holtz would send us down there, and then 2 or 3 minutes later, hey, get Edwards back here.
Man, that is funny.
So it was a little humiliating at the time, but like I said, I dreaded going to practice and didn't always appreciate him when you were going through it. But as the years go by, you can kind of see some of the things that he was doing, the life lessons that he was teaching, and trying to not only make you a better football player, but a better man down the road as well.
Well, he was obviously very successful, so you knew what he was doing. So 4 years are up. Did you know right off the bat you could go to the NFL? Was that your goal? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yes. And once again, it was kind of like early in my college career. It was more kind of like it was early in recruiting. Like, I want to go play in the NFL, but am I going to be good enough? I don't know yet. You know, but I think after my junior year, Holtz made everybody write a letter to the NFL to see about to get an evaluation because the NFL's already. They have people who are evaluating everybody. And I got a letter back saying, if you left as a junior, the earliest you could possibly be picked is probably the 3rd round.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
3rd round, that's not bad.
Right.
So not saying that I would have been.
You got a letter back.
But that's what I got. So I'm like, all right, I have a chance. And, after my junior year, which I had a pretty solid campaign, I was like, I have the opportunity. After the senior year, then it was combine and, got invited to the combine and I knew I was going to get drafted. Then it was just a matter of when and where and
you went
things
to
like that.
49ers first?
Yeah. Okay. I ended up being the 55th overall pick,
oh, so cool.
25th pick of the 2nd round, back when there were only 30 teams.
Right.
That was before Houston and it was the latest I don't remember who the
Nashville, right? Is that you're talking about?
Well, no, because Houston went to Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, but when before the Houston Texans and maybe the Cleveland.
Was it similar?
It was before Cleveland came back.
Was it a similar kind of thing where you're waiting for a phone call, or did you go somewhere?
Yeah, no, I had a so the draft experience was pretty stressful.
Right.
So after I got done my senior year. Okay. I had finished up at Notre Dame in 3.5 years because I'm a summer school and stuff like that. So I had my, all the credits I needed to graduate. Right. So I remember on New Year's Day, I left for Bradenton, Florida to go to what is now the IMG facility. Back then it was the Voluntary Sports Complex. Okay. And they had a guy there, Mark Verstegen, who started Exos, which is a huge sports wellness company, now that, works with corporations. I mean, he was really sharp. But we were working out 3 times a day. My agent was IMG at the time, which I think now is CC Creative Artist Agency or CAA, I think. But Tom Condon, who had, Peyton Manning and Joe Montana and guys like that, I ended up going with him with my agent. And they had 3 or 4 other guys that were all pretty highly rated guys as well. So we were all down there training for, 3 times a day.
So you went to go train and find your agent at the same time?
No. I already had my agent.
Okay.
Yeah, the agent stuff kind of worked out like towards the end of my senior year.
Right.
Interviewed 4 or 5 guys
okay.
And ended up, going with Tom Condon. But then they sent us down to that facility to train for the combine for 6 weeks because it may be longer than that. Yeah, because it was till February, early February, I think is when the combine was.
Right.
So, so I'm down there just training for weeks and weeks. And I mean, that's my whole life was nothing but training.
Yes.
So then, go to the combine, have a really good combine.
Were you married at that time?
No.
Okay.
No, I was still young and single.
Yes.
And all that good stuff. So.
Yes.
We'll get back to the story in just a second, but while you're listening, here's something you should know if you live in Northeast Florida. If you're self-employed and trying to buy a home, it's not as hard as you might think. We work with business owners, freelancers, and creatives every single day. People who don't fit the traditional housing mold, and we're here to let you know that we have real loan programs that make homeownership possible. We've helped tons of local business owners and creatives get approved using flexible loan options that work for them and their business. First Coast Mortgage Funding is proud to sponsor Hometown Jax right here in Jacksonville.
Go through the combine experience and then go back to Notre Dame. There's individual workouts where, we had our pro day and things like that. And then you're just waiting for the draft.
Right.
So just continuing to work out. I was kind of told, projected to go mid-second to mid-third, and that's end up
so
right.
So were you
right
happy at the 55?
Oh yeah,
yeah, right.
Second round. You kidding me? For a fullback, not many go higher than that. Right. So that was awesome. A great experience. But on draft day, I mean, back then it was only on ESPN, right? It was a Saturday and Sunday draft. First 2 rounds were on Saturday. The other 5 rounds were on Sunday, and you had 15 minutes between picks in the first round. So, I mean, first round lasted, first 4 picks, hour. Second 4 picks, hour. So we had a draft party down at Montgomery Inn Boathouse in downtown Cincinnati. Okay. I had some buddies from college come up, friends from home, had a packed house. And I'm waiting around all day for that phone call. It was right when cell phones came out. I got my first cell phone. So they had my cell phone, and they had the number to the restaurant. Right. And your agent sends out packets to all 30 teams at the time. So they all have your information and so forth and so on. And plus, throughout the combine experience and senior, I played in the Senior Bowl that year as well. You're doing interviews with the teams. They're getting your contact info. They're talking to you. You're taking psych evaluations, Wonderlic test, all that stuff. And so all my friends are having a great time eating. They're drinking. They're getting hammered, right? And I'm waiting for the call, right? Like I'm nervous, just waiting on the call. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, right? 7 o'clock, we're like mid-second round right now. And the place where we were watching the game only had ESPN, not ESPN2. The draft switched from ESPN to ESPN2 at 7 o'clock. And I'm like, holy, right? So the owner, Dean Gregory, is working frantically with the cable company to get the ESPN2 on so we can see what happens. So, it's probably 8:30-ish now. And we still don't have the broadcast up yet. And Dean looks over. I'm like, Mark, you got a call. And, and the way it happened is pretty cool because nobody knew who it was except Dean at the time. And then when I picked up the phone, him and I were the only two who knew who the call was.
Right.
Because we didn't see the draft. Right. And I had gotten 30 hats. I had 3 boxes of hats sitting in front of me at the table where the phone was. And I take the call. And it's like, oh, yeah, hey, great. I'm so excited. And everybody's screaming, who is it? Who is it? Who is it?
Right.
Like, nobody knows.
Right.
And yeah, it was a short call. I talked to the head coach, talked to the GM, talked to the running back coach briefly. And so I hang up and everybody's like, who is it? Who is it? And it's kind of, like I said, really cool the way it happened because then I fingered through the first hat. I went through the second box of hats and I saw it. And I went through the third box of hats just to, for a little bit of drama. Yeah. And then, then I went back to the middle and then popped on the 49ers hat and like everybody went crazy. It was really cool.
That is really cool.
So at that point, I was ready to go out with my buddies and, hit the town and, have a good time and celebrate. And, at the end of that call, they were like, hey, well, we'll have our travel people call you and get you out here first thing tomorrow morning. I'm like, what? So I end up having a 6 a.m. flight out of downtown Cincinnati out to San Fran for the introductory press conference. Like I just brought my going out clothes, like jeans and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting to go right out there. So I ended up being the designated driver that night for all my friends who got hammered and had a great time, celebrating. And I didn't sleep at all that night because I was just so wired up. I got back to the hotel after, bringing my friends back at 2 or 3 in the morning. And I basically went to the hotel, I showered and went to the airport. And because I didn't have anything, I stopped in the PGA shop in there and bought a pair of slacks and a nice shirt for my introductory press conference out there. But yeah, flew out there to San Fran, had the introductory press conference with the fellow draft picks. Yeah. And then flew back to South Bend that night.
Wow. What an experience. Awesome. So how long were you in San Francisco?
I was there for 2 seasons.
2 seasons? Yeah. And then went
So what happened was after 2 seasons, the Cleveland Browns franchise came back after they moved to Baltimore after the 95 season. So Cleveland was an expansion franchise in 99, and they hired Carmen Policy and Dwight Clark, who were the GM and player personnel got people at San Fran. They're the guys that drafted me. So when they went to start up the Cleveland Browns franchise, they ended up trading for me along with a bunch of other 49er players. Wow. And, got shipped off to Cleveland after 2 pretty solid seasons in San Fran.
Yeah. Wow. And how long were you at Cleveland?
I was in So San Fran in 97 and 98, back in the Steve Young, Jerry Rice days. Went to the playoffs both years, went to the NFC Championship game my rookie year. Yeah. And then I was the backup behind William Floyd that year, who was a great fullback. He was a free agent, went and played at Carolina, so I was a starter in 1998. And that's the game. That's the season where we're in the playoffs in the wild card game against Green Bay, where Terrell Owens catches that 27-yard pass over the middle with 8 seconds left to win the game. Now it's very dramatic. People have seen it on NFL Network and things like that. And the things they don't remember is that he dropped 5 passes that game that we never would have been in that situation had he caught those passes.
Little tidbits, for sure.
So 2 years in San Fran, and then I get traded to Cleveland. Yeah. I'm there for 2 seasons. That were not very successful. I loved living in Cleveland. I loved the fans. The franchise treated us fantastic. But we were 2-14 that first year. Yes. And quite frankly, got lucky to win both of those games. One of them we won on a Hail Mary. We won our first game 7 or game 8, on a Hail Mary. And then we won our second game against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh with a 45-yard field goal into a monsoon wind that our guy cleared the bar by this much. Phil Dawson, a longtime kicker for the Browns, and I think he played out 49ers for a few years too. And then my second year we start the year off 2-1. We lose Tim Couch, who was kind of up and coming at that time. He ended up getting hurt and career never really took off, but great guy. he got hurt, and we started the year off 2-1, and we finished the year 3-13. So 2 bad years there. Then I'm a free agent, and New England's the first team.
You're not used to bad years, so that was tough.
Yeah, so I'm a free agent then, and New England was the first team to call me. Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator, and they called me first day of free agency, but said, hey, we're going to be patient, but just let us, we're going to see how things play out and let the market set itself, but we are interested in you. So I'm a free agent. I knew, the Browns coach, Chris Palmer, gets fired, and they bring in, who was the guy? Butch Davis from Indy, and they didn't use a fullback, so I knew I wasn't going to be back in Cleveland. So after a few weeks of free agency, New England comes back like, hey, this is what the market is. We want you to be our fullback. That's my best offer at the time. I guess that's where I'm going. So that first year in New England, they just re-signed Drew Bledsoe. He was the first $100 million quarterback. They were 5-11 the year before under Bill Belichick's first season.
Wow.
So we start that season in Cincinnati, and we lose the Bengals. Now, this isn't the Joe Burrow Bengals we're talking about. This is the 90s Bengals. This is 2001.
Rough.
They were bad.
Right.
So we lose the first game to the Bengals. Then 9/11 happens, so the next week gets postponed.
Right.
And then the following week, we play the Jets in Foxborough. And most everybody that's a football fan remembers this hit, but towards the end of the game, Drew Bledsoe's running out of bounds, scrambling. Mo Lewis hits him in the chest. TV didn't do it justice. It sounded like he hit him with a shotgun barrel, bam. And that's when Drew Bledsoe got knocked silly, right? So the story goes, if anybody's seen it, that the next series, Drew comes back, and we're running a check with me play, meaning, depending on how their defense lines up, we're going to run a play to the right or the left, depending on how they line up. So as we're walking up he calls a play in the huddle, Drew Bledsoe did, and as we're walking up to the line of scrimmage, we're lined up in split backs, and he's in the shotgun, and we're running a shovel pass to whichever side John Abraham is lined up on, because he's their big pass rusher that's going to get upfield. We're not even going to block him. We're just going to run a shovel pass under him. And Drew looks over at me and says, Mark, which way do I run this play? And Drew is a super sharp guy. I'm like, we run it this way towards John, Drew. So anyway, we go out that series, and I go over to the trainer like, hey, you got to look at Drew. Something's not right.
Right.
And, very well, that may have saved his life, because what happened when Mo Lewis hit him, it sheared a blood vessel in his heart cavity, and his heart cavity was slowly filling with blood. So his heart couldn't pump. He ended up going to emergency surgery that night.
Wow.
So, but that's when a young fella named Tom Brady came in and became the starter.
Well, I remember you saying about Tom Brady, man, but I didn't hear that about Drew. Like, you literally got him off the field to some degree, and that wouldn't have ended up well. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't remember any of it, he says. So doesn't even remember going into the game and all of that.
No. And if you some of those documentaries, with Brady and Bledsoe, like, they tell the whole story. It's very interesting of how it all went down. But when I got to New England, like I said, they were 5-11 the year before, and Tom Brady was the fourth team quarterback when I arrived there that summer as a free agent, or that spring as a free agent. You had, obviously Bledsoe there. They brought Damon Heward in from Miami, who was kind of a part-time starter down there. And then you had, Bishop, forget the kid's name, Bishop from Kansas State, who darn near won a national title for Kansas State. Really good player. Brady was a fourth-team quarterback.
Wow.
Most NFL teams only keep 3 quarterbacks. Sometimes they keep 2 and a practice squad guy. Right. New England had 4 active quarterbacks in 2000. So when I get there before the 01 season, Brady is still the fourth-team quarterback. And then during training camp, he looked so good. He beat out both Bishop and Damon Heward, who they brought in to be the backup. And like I said, Drew already was the first one to sign that $100 million contract, so he wasn't going to beat him out. But then fate had other ideas.
Man, what a series of coincidence. Like this guy named Tom Brady. So play the rest of that season out, because you told me that story.
Yeah. So we start the year off 0-2. We lose the franchise quarterback. Like I said, I thought we were going winless.
Right.
Okay. So Brady comes in. We go down. We play Indy. Indy is 2-0. Peyton Manning's like third year, something like that. And they had won their first 2 games by a combined score of like 90 to 40 or something like that. We're thinking, wow, this is bad. So Indy comes in. We kind of rally as a team, and we had beat the heck out of them, right? So now we're 1-2. We're feeling a little better about ourselves. We go down to Miami the next week, which happened all the time back then. We would go to Miami in September where it was too dang hot. We get our butts kicked. So now we're 1-3. And we're panicking a little bit, right? So the next week, it's kind of like everybody looked at each other like, Bledsoe's not here to win the game for us anymore. Everybody's going to have to step up collectively. And that's kind of what happened. We became a team. We stopped getting introduced individually at that time. And we came out as a team, introduced as a team every single week because that's the only way you're going to be able to win.
Right.
So we slowly get back. We get back to 3-3. Then we get back to 5-4. Win 2 games in a row, a couple games in a row. And then now we play the Rams Week 10 on a Sunday night, I think it is. And this is the greatest show on turf, Rams, right? Like they were the best team in the league that year and it wasn't even close. So we end up losing to them. It was I think it was 24-17, but it wasn't that close to the game. I think we scored a late touchdown to make it look a little bit better.
Right.
So we're 5-5 at the time, and really still don't have an identity. We're kind of banding together, and then all of a sudden we just go on this amazing win streak. That year we were number 18 in the league in offense. We were number 15 in the league in defense, but we were top 5 in turnover differential and top 5 in red zone scoring. So we scored touchdowns, held them to field goals, and that's how we won. We started finding innovative ways to win games. From basically week 10 on, we would score a touchdown on special teams or defense dang near every week, right? And we were finding ways to win games, 24-21, 17-10, just grinding it out, playing situational football and winning games. So we win our last 6 games. We're 11-5 now. And the way like Miami and the Jets were both, right there with us. Like I think all 3 teams made the playoffs that year. And just the way things fell together for us ended up giving us that first round bye because Miami had to lose to a bad Buffalo Bills team back then, like in week 15 or 16. And then we had to win our final game. And then all of a sudden we're AFC East champs and kind of fell into it. We played our way into it. But we also kind of fell because we didn't control our own destiny. We had to have teams.
And you
lose.
were playing a lot during this, right?
Oh yeah, I was starting fullback.
Oh, that's
and
awesome. Tom? Did he start off really good?
You know what, Tom? That season, there were a couple games where Tom threw for 300 yards and kind of really.
But it wasn't.
But we were protecting Tom that year. We played a lot of 2 tight end, 2 running back, 1 receiver type formations, and we ran the ball and play action. We would run the ball for 150 yards a game. We would Brady's typical line that year, 16 for 22, 205 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks.
Okay.
And we would run for 150 yards and a touchdown. We'd have a defensive touchdown. We'd win, field goal. We win 24-17. That was kind of the season how it went. So we get into the playoffs. I want to say it was about an even line game, or the Raiders may have even been a favorite coming in to Foxborough. And, they, like I said, we had the week off. We ended up the number 2 seed. And back then, the number 2 seed still had a bye. 1-2 had a bye. So they played the Jets the week before, and then they came to Foxborough. So it was the Saturday night divisional game. Okay. And at 4:00, there was not a flake of snow in the air. By the time we get there, it's a blizzard.
Oh my gosh.
So everybody remembers the Snow Bowl game.
Yes.
Right. And that team for the Raiders was loaded. Jerry Rice, Tim Brown. I forget the running back, but it was a big time running back. Rich Gannon, good defensively. They were fantastic. And, that's kind of when the legend of Brady really started taking off. And, they were beating us the whole game. We were down, I want to say 10-0 going in, to the fourth quarter or something like that. And then Brady engineers had come back. Obviously the Tuck rule happened, and that certainly rule benefited us, and it was the right rule at the time.
Right.
Was it a fumble? Yeah, it was a fumble, but that's the way the rule played out. I don't make the rules, just play by them.
Right.
But once again, we still had to get down there and make that field goal, and everybody's seen that Vinatieri field goal. The game, the field goal to tie it was definitely the most difficult kick in NFL history, bar none. I think it was 40 yards into a wind, into a snowstorm, blizzard. And I distinctly remember that game. Like every TV timeout, they would come and blow off the 5-yard increments and the sidelines. And by the time the game kicked back off,
it was already covered.
Yeah, it was. The Foxborough Stadium back then still had grass. And the middle of the field was nothing but mud, and outside the hashes was nothing but ice.
Yeah.
It was just an iconic game all around. We tied up before the end, and we win the coin flip, take it down, kick a field goal, game over. We go on to Pittsburgh the next week. So
unbelievable.
It was really cool to play in that iconic game. I got a bunch of pictures of myself from that game. So that was a heck of an experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so we go to Pittsburgh the following week. 60 degrees, sunny.
Yes.
Still in January. So a beautiful day in Pittsburgh. We scored on. We blocked a punt. Oh no, we blocked a field goal and took it back for a touchdown. We blocked a. No, we got a. No, we scored on defense twice. Oh no, punt return, and we scored on a punt
continuing
return.
With the
continuing with non-traditional ways of winning, right? And Brady gets hurt during that game. Bledsoe comes back in at the end of the first half, throws a touchdown pass, and he plays the entire second half.
Okay.
So, but we end up, fourth quarter. Cordell Stewart kept throwing interceptions to us, so we closed that game out. We beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh to go to the Super Bowl now.
Yeah.
And because of 9/11 happened early and all NFL season getting moved back a week, we don't have a bye week in between the championship game and the Super Bowl. So literally, we get back to Foxborough, we go home, we transition, we come back the next morning, and we're in New Orleans Monday morning after winning in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Wow.
So now we're playing the greatest show on turf. The team that team they were number one in the league in offense, number one in the league in scoring. They were number 3 in the league in defense. They lost 2 games that year. They shouldn't have lost. One game they turned the ball over 7 times and lost by a touchdown.
Okay.
And then they had like a 24-10 lead against New Orleans that year, and somehow or another blew that. But they were a historically good team.
Right.
And this was we were at the time maybe the second largest underdog ever to go out and win a Super Bowl. So
was there a little quarterback controversy?
There was just because we didn't know if Bledsoe or if Brady was going to be able to play or not.
Right.
He rolled his ankle, but when we got there,
so Brady
he was fine.
if he was ready to play.
If he was ready to play, he was going to play.
Okay.
And he was.
Yes.
So that Super Bowl game, it was so interesting. And when people ask me about Belichick, the genius that he is, so rewind to Week 10 against the Rams on that Sunday night. We play our defensive game plan. We blitzed Kurt Warner 80% of the time, right? They held him to 24 points, when they were averaging probably 32 or whatever it was that season. So, I mean, it was okay, but blitzed him 80% of the time and really didn't get a lot of pressure on him, right? So now I'm at practice in Louisiana and, offense goes for, 10 plays or whatever, and then against defensive scout team, and then the defense goes. So I'm watching the defense and what they're doing. Completely different game plan, completely different strategy. So
in a week, I mean,
well, 8 weeks later,
yeah, right.
against the same team. So what they're doing is they're only rushing 3 guys, and whichever way Marshall Faulk releases, that defensive end basically stops rushing and hits him, tackle him, whatever they had to do to try to take their best weapon out of the game, which was Marshall Faulk at the time. And not only that, but we had our corners just absolutely mugging, Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. I mean, just, historic receivers. They're just mugging them at the line of scrimmage. So I'm like, completely different. We were blitzing 80% of the time. Now we're barely rushing. And during that game, we held them to 3 points all the way to the fourth quarter, which was historic.
Wow.
And they were hitting receivers when they were just standing there.
Right.
They were hitting Marshall Faulk when they were just standing there. Our first touchdown was a pick six where their right tackle turned back, and it was a blown pass protection. Mike Vrabel comes right off the end and clubs Kurt Warner right in the skull with a forearm, which now not only would it be a penalty, but he'd probably be ejected, right? But it was a pick six. Ty Law stepped in front of him because he threw a bad ball, and pick six. We're up 7-3. We get another turnover. We're up 14-3 going into halftime against the greatest show on turf.
Well, yeah, and I would imagine they kind of thought in their minds that they would win this game without a problem.
Absolutely. They were 11.5-point favorites. Most of the ESPN folks were predicting, and if you remember, there were a lot of blowouts back then, NFC versus AFC, right? AFC had just finally won a few games with Denver. Like the NFC had won, 15 Super Bowls in a row until Denver in 97. So this is only 2001. So the NFC is still very dominant over the AFC as far as Super Bowl wins go. So, yeah, they were huge favorites. But, we go in at halftime, and then we just kind of continue with that same conservative game plan. We're trying offensively not to screw it up. Right? We're running the ball. We're getting 2 or 3 first downs. We're eating clock. We're keeping Kurt Warner and those guys off the field, right? So, fourth quarter, 8 minutes to go. We're up 14-3 still. 17-3.
Okay.
And the Rams finally start mounting a little bit. They're doing it untraditional for their offense. Instead of these big plays, they're grinding it out against our defense, and they're move the ball down the field. We get them at 4th and 2 on the goal line, 4th and goal on the 2, and 8 minutes left in the game. We're up 14 points, and Kurt Warner's running around. He starts to scramble, and he's trying to run it in on 4th and goal. One of our linebackers, Roman Pfeiffer, tackles him. He fumbles to Bucky Jones, our really fast safety, picks it up, goes 99 yards for a touchdown. Game over, right? Flag on the field. Remember I talked about the defensive game plan of tackling and hitting Marshall Faulk, releasing? First time all game they called it. Willie McGinnis tackled him as he was coming out of the backfield, and they threw a flag, defensive holding.
Oh, my gosh.
So they score. All right, we get the ball again. We get a couple first downs. We get stopped. They get the ball back, 4 minutes left. They go 3 and out. We get the ball, go 3 and out. They get the ball with 1:58 left.
What's the score then?
17-10.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens is, we're thinking, all right, we got to stop these guys. They score in 3 plays to tie it up. So we got 1:26 left now.
Oh, man.
So they just boom, boom, boom. Our defense has stopped them like Stonewall all game.
Yeah.
3 plays, score, touchdown, no problem. So that's when they kick off. We get tackled like on our own 16. It was a terrible return. They have all the momentum now. Tie ball game, 1:26 left. John Madden is saying, just take a knee and take it into overtime. You got this, young starting quarterback who, had an ankle injury the year before. And once again, the legend of Tom Brady, slowly took us down the field, got us into field goal range. Adam Vinatieri, 47-yard field goal to win it. and we go absolutely crazy, and it was a heck of an experience.
It's just an amazing story. What is it? What's it like to win a Super Bowl, Mark? I mean, like
it's surreal.
There's a handful of people in eternity that have ever done it.
If you look at the numbers, it's whatever, Super Bowl 55 or 56, whatever, but approximately 50 guys per team. There's more than that, but let's just say 50 guys times 55 Super Bowls. You're looking at 2,700 guys,
right?
And some guys, like Brady, he has 2 handfuls of them. Charles Haley has a handful of them. So it's a pretty unique fraternity. Like I said, one of maybe 3,000 guys who have earned a Super Bowl ring. Whatever the numbers are.
Do you still get goosebumps talking about it?
It's fun. I've told the story so many times over and over.
Right.
I don't know if I get goosebumps, but it's certainly a very,
Is
very
it so vivid though?
You saw I've been talking about it, how passionately, and how I just kind of go through the scenarios just like it was yesterday. But yeah, it's the Super Bowl ring. I brought it with me.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, just in case. Okay. But yeah.
Wow.
So we got that right there.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
So I don't wear it much anymore because you walk into a place like whole play season. Hey, we'll just kind of leave it there for the camera.
That's awesome.
But it's very surreal having it. After the game, I literally we went back to the stadium, and it was already kind of late. It was
now,
4 o'clock.
Were you married at the time?
Yeah,
Did you have some kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had our 2 oldest at the time.
Were they there?
They were not. They were at home with grandma.
But Darcy was there?
Okay. Darcy was there. Her father was there. Her brother were there. My family was there. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Yes.
But yeah, after the game, we went back to the hotel. The team had a big party there, and I never even went down. I never even left the hotel that night. And all of a sudden, it's 4 a.m. I'm still at the team party, like not even realizing it's 4 a.m. because you're just so jacked and just still adrenaline running. And I remember getting in bed and just saying, "Wow, we just won the Super Bowl. Wow,
and
we just won the Super Bowl."
And how you did it, that game and the whole season is just legendary.
Well, it was one of those seasons that people think it was too perfect. Like just the whole story, the year of 9/11, a 5-11 team, the Patriots from the day before, it was very patriotic,
right?
With everybody, all the 9/11 attacks and everybody feeling super patriotic about things. And then the Patriots go on this amazing run. Like, people are like, this is rigged. I'm like, it's really not. It was too scripted to be just perfect, right?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I'm feeling your energy here. It's just unbelievable. Wow. And I'm so glad we told that story because I wanted to hear it. So after you had your stint with New England, you had a stint with the Jags for a while.
Yep. Came down here, played for the Jags for a couple of years.
And then did you just love Jacksonville so much that's why you stayed?
Yeah, for the most part. But it was kind of a natural time to settle down. I played here for 2 years. It was towards the end of my career. My children were starting to get of school age. They were starting to get into school, play soccer. My 2 oldest they have their friends and things like that. We obviously loved Jacksonville, loved the weather, all about it. First year I was down here, I was playing golf on December 23rd in shorts and a golf shirt and one of our off days. And, after growing up in Ohio, South Bend, I had a little stint out in San Fran where it was nice weather, but then Cleveland, New England, like it was.
How do you know
down here? It was awesome down here
when it was over. Did you make the decision? Or you just
no. So we ended up staying down here. I played for the Jags for 2 years. And then they were both okay seasons. It was Del Rio's first year. We went 5-11, but the second half of the season we went 4-4. So we were kind of up and coming. Byron Leftwich took over for Brunell after he got hurt, like in the 3rd game. And, we got a little bit better as a year. And so the following season in 2002, there were a little higher expectations. We started the year off 3-0. We ended up 9-7 and just missing the playoffs. There's a little bit of growth that year. But Del Rio gives me a call, says, "Hey, Mark, we're releasing you." I'm like, okay, whatever. So I knew I'd have another opportunity and ended up signing with the Bears. But once again, because the kids were in school, the 2 oldest, and having their friends and playing soccer and stuff, I went up there and lived in a hotel room for the season.
Okay.
And I just commuted back and forth. Yeah, I was at the Bears in 2005.
Okay.
So what happened was right before training camp started, I got a call from my agent. Hey, the Bears are interested. They have 2 fullbacks on their roster. Both of them got hurt. They're going to be on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list. So they're not going to be able to start training camp. So they need somebody. All right, cool. So I went up there, ended up winning the starting job, played great for the first 7-8 games. But then the 2 fullbacks that were on the physically unable to perform list came back. One of them was, like their starter, the guy they were paying, some decent money. Their other guy was their young special teams guy. So after I start a game, we win. Like we started the year off 0-2, 1-3, and then we were 5-3, and we were getting some momentum. My tailback, Thomas Jones, was having a career year. They had a great offensive line. We were really starting to gain some momentum. And Lovey calls me in on a Tuesday right after I start, and I got a couple touchdown catches. They said my tailback's playing great. And he's like, hey, this is one of the really crappy things about the NFL, Mark. You have done everything we've asked you to do. You have played fantastic. But we got to release you. We can't have 3 fullbacks on the roster for the reasons I just mentioned. My one guy's, we're not going to cut for salary cap reasons. The other guy's our young, minimum guy that's a special teams guy. Just one of the things that's unfair about the NFL, Mark. And I respect Lovey for that. He was real, and it was like we were trying to find a way to keep all 3 of you, but just with the roster limits, we had a couple linemen get hurt. Like we just can't do it. So I had to wait that Tuesday. Monday after we got back from the game, I had taken my clothes to the dry cleaner there in Chicago. I literally had to wait till 5 p.m. the next day to get my clothes from the dry cleaner, one-day dry cleaner. I got in my car. I drove straight back to Jacksonville from Chicago, 15, 17 hours, whatever it was. Got back like at 9 in the morning and enjoyed my first normal Thanksgiving and Christmas that year that I ever had. Now, the nice thing about, I guess, being released in the middle of the season is, as a veteran, they still had to pay me the rest of the year. But it was like it's called like a severance package, or I forget the official NFL term,
right?
Severance pay. But it was, they didn't have to pay me like regular weekly, but they had to, after the season was over, compensate me for all those weeks that I didn't. It was like a one-time severance pay or something like that. And then the next season, 2006 year, I got calls from a couple of teams like, hey, maybe come to training camp or come work out to see if we'll invite you to training camp to see if, maybe we'll, make the team or not. I'm like I'm in my 8th year, or actually it'd be my 10th year at the time. I played 9 years.
Wow.
It would have been my body couldn't take it anymore. And like I wasn't going to go to training camp not to make the team. Like, look, you guys know what I can do. All right. Like I was having to see the chiropractor, a couple of times a week, get a masseuse. And it wasn't that it hurt anymore late in my career. It just hurt longer.
Right.
It was tougher to heal up
and
get ready for the next game. And, but so, nothing ended up working out. That 2006, called my agent and said, hey, time to file the retirement papers. I think I'm done. So people always ask me, well, why'd you stop playing? It's like, well, I really didn't stop playing. Teams didn't want me at that point, and that's probably how 90% of players finish their career.
Right. Well, I mean, what an incredible story, Mark. It's funny, on an article I read about you, though, you say to this day that those Friday Night Lights were still probably
absolutely
the highlight. I mean, it's hard to say they're the highlight of all that you went through, but like that's the most enjoyable.
That's the most enjoyable time in my football.
You had a quote that like the higher you get, the less enjoyable.
More and more of a business. Now, don't get me wrong, like my college years were great, pro years great, but I still have great friends from high school that I played football with and spent all that time in the weight room with. That, even if I don't talk to them for 2 or 3 years, if I was in a Mexican prison, they come bail me out, right? I could call them and they would come bail me out. Same thing with college. I got my core guys that we were going out with and having a good time and chasing girls back in college and all that stuff with, and playing ball and all that time in the weight room together. Whereas when you transition to the NFL, it's like it's like your business partners, your coworkers, and like I don't keep in touch regularly with anybody I play with the NFL. Now, if I see them out, there's a lot of guys from Jacksonville that come here and play here and they stay here. So I see guys at some of the Jags events or, out at the beach or, wherever. And, we'll talk and, reminisce and whatever. But I don't keep into regular touch with them like I do my high school and my college friends and teammates. But there was nothing more pure than playing Friday night, under the lights in high school, just, football in its purest form. Yeah. And, and like last night, my son played in the spring game, right? Bulls versus Mandarin. And like that just, now the only thing that's missing is they all have this turf now. You don't get the smell of that fresh cut grass that I miss so much as well. That reminds me of my high school days, Friday night lights, and we still had the real grass back then, but that fresh cut grass, man, there's nothing like it.
Well, speaking of your family, you have an amazing family, an amazing wife, and 3 very accomplished daughters. And then Xander, who we were talking about, who is doing amazing things with football and school and always has been a great kid. That's how I got to know you. Wrapping it up, Mark, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you're doing now. So you kind of have a unique business that you started and you kind of fell into it where you're maintaining operating systems for forklifts for companies all around the country, right?
Yeah. So one of these stories that I tell whenever I go back to Notre Dame, they still have me talk to the current players quite a bit, right? And, my message to them is this, that, the reason I got my current job is because I wasn't a jerk, right? So 1996, it's after my senior year. I'm out at the bar after the game, the linebacker right across, legendary linebacker right across from the stadium. And some guy comes up, like, hey, you're Marc Edwards, just watched your game. Hey, great. And I sat there and I just, talked with the gang. I was just nice to him, I had a beer, whatever. I don't remember this interaction. So fast forward to when I finished playing, I'm back in 2006, year after I get done playing at a Charlie Weiss golf outing. And I run into this guy that he owns a bunch. He's there to plan the outing, and he owns a bunch of forklift dealerships. And he's like, "Hey man, I remember meeting you and the linebacker in 1996." And obviously, I don't remember this, but it was influential for him. And at the time, so when I got out of the NFL, I tried to get into the financial industry, right? And this is another thing that I tell these kids. Okay. So I get into the financial, I get my Series 7, I get my insurance licenses, and all those guys that were calling me asking for tickets all those years, all of a sudden are not returning my call when I need some help. And I'm trying to transition to, hey, what am I going to do now that I'm not, I'm not playing a game anymore. I'm actually an adult now. And it is a challenging transition.
I would imagine.
So, I try to transition in the financial world, and so this guy that I meet at the golf outing, I'm trying to get his business, for employee benefits, right? So we exchanged numbers and we tried to work some stuff out, but it didn't work out in that side of the things. But I kept in touch with him then from that point on, and I would go play golf with him when I get me in South Bend. So fast forward, it's maybe 2007 now. I'm a couple years out. I'm kind of, toiling in this insurance stuff. I hate every second of it because all those years when I was playing football, I never heard the word no. Hey, skip the line at the club. Everybody wants to take you out for a steak dinner. Everybody wants to hang out with you. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing no, and I'm getting ghosted by these guys and people that I had done favors for and I had done speaking engagements for. I had gotten tickets for. They're ghosting me when I am reaching back out for some help. And it was interesting. It was the first time I'm hearing no in my life. Right. And it was eye-opening, right? So I keep in touch with this guy, and 2007, 2008, he's like, hey, I got this guy coming over from Australia. He's bringing this product over, and he needs help. He needs a face of the company. So I was going to be the sales guy, kind of the face of this company for this product that it's basically a safety and efficiency device for forklifts, a black box type system that allows somebody to monitor their fleet online. It basically makes it so somebody has to swipe a card or input a code before the forklift will even start, and you can assign whomever to whatever piece of equipment or not assign them, right? So specific operators for the specific pieces of equipment they're trained for. And then it's going to track all they're doing, moving time, idle time, it's going to time out if they're not sitting on the lift, those kind of things. If they hit something, it'll send out emails, let them know if they're, if they've had an accident or if they're using it in a rough manner. They do their pre-trip OSHA checklist on it. If there's any faults, it sends out emails, right? So I'm going to be selling this, but our business model was to sell it to forklift dealers, teach them and their technicians how to install it. Well, their technicians would mess that up because they wanted to do just the preventative maintenance and just the normal forklift stuff on it. So we would have all kinds of issues, and I would have to go out in the field and fix them, even though at the time I didn't even know how to use a multimeter. And if anybody doesn't know what a multimeter is, it's a way to read voltages
I didn't
on the forklift, right? So I slowly started going out in the field, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but we had one old guy who really knew his stuff, and I was literally his body out there in the field. And I would spend hours upon hours on the phone with him fixing these issues. So eventually what happened, these dealers would be like, hey, Mark, you fixed all of our issues. Why don't you just install this for us to begin with?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Duh. So I accidentally started a company, and slowly over the years, I was by myself for 4 or 5 years, very slow growth, but made an okay living. And now I've expanded. I've done no marketing, no advertising, no cold calling, and slowly just my name got out there because I solve a issue. Right. For some of these companies. So I've expanded to a bunch of different products that we install.
Wow.
I got 7, 8 guys. We just travel around the country every week. We go on job sites and basically rewire forklifts. So I've been doing that since about 2008, 2009 now, and really, really taken off the last couple of years.
I mean, because you said where you talk to the young guys that when you go talk to them, I mean, it's kind of a lesson in humility a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I mean, don't take anything for granted. Yeah. Work hard. You never know where it's going to end up being.
Well, not only that, but kind of getting back to where I was going with that original story was I have my business now because I was nice.
Because you weren't a jerk.
Because I was nice to that, just student in 1996.
Right.
Because if he sees me again in 2006, and I was a jerk back then, he probably doesn't even want to talk to me.
Right.
So just little things like that. Like I tell him, hey, you know what? That nerd down the hallway, like his dad may own, some enormous company and they're going to hire you. And, and they want former athletes because of the discipline that they've had to deal with, their entire lives and the structure and the hard work and, the things like that. Plus, you got an interesting story. It's easy to talk with people, transition into different things because you have that experience and those things to talk about, like the mileage I get out of the Super Bowl ring.
Oh, I'm sure.
So typically I'll go into a job site. I don't tell anybody my background or whatever. I want them to see my work ethic and what we do and all that. And then eventually it gets brought up somehow or another. Somebody looks my name up or somebody's like, hey, that kind of sounds familiar. He used to do something, or one of the dealers that I work with that already know me and have known me for a long time will mention something to the Insight user or something like that. And they're like, hey, and then all of a sudden they start Googling and, find a bunch of pictures and articles and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I'm bringing out the ring to show the employees that work there and, things like that. And then it makes life a little bit easier on the side. Everybody's a little more willing to help and not be as difficult. So that
is really cool, Mark. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you. I could go on for hours, but thank you for coming on the podcast. I know people are going to love to hear your story. I just love the beginning from, the blue collar to the blue collar, but man, you just hit some incredible accomplishments, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Had a great time along the way as well. So
absolutely
glad it finally worked out. We've been trying to make this happen for at least 6 months now, and due to my current job, I'm traveling. I'm every week, but because my son had the spring game last night, I was in town and it worked out. So
I'm grateful. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
Appreciate you. The Hometown Jax podcast is recorded and produced by First Coast Mortgage Funding, located in the heart of Jacksonville. Do you want to be our next guest? Visit our website at hometownjaxpodcast.com. We can't wait to hear your story.